everybody, welcome back to another Poseidon Reacts. Today we are going to be watching Magic the Gathering player plays Pokemon TCG for a week, changes life. A week of Pokemon TCG, kind of hard for me to believe that it can change your life. I mean, it definitely changed mine. It took definitely more than a week. So we're just gonna have to see how this goes. I wonder how this Magic player feels about Pokemon.
I am a Magic player.
You are?
I've been a Magic player for so long that I remember when Magic cards looked like this, and one of my most memorable.
I don't think I've ever seen like an ancient Magic card. By ancient, I mean from like the 1990s. These are pretty sick. I kind of really like these.
Christmases was when I was 12 years old and I crept downstairs to find 5 packs of alliances, from which I opened a Balduvian Horde, an experience that was so impactful it formed a core memory and started me down a path that I would continue on for almost 3 decades now.
The typical TCG player brainworm story. You get it, like you start like collecting them as a child, and then it just doesn't stop. You collect them, you're like, okay, how do I use them? You learn the game, and then the rest is history. How do I know? Because it happened to me!
One which would lead to 8 years on YouTube talking about my favorite thing.
However, love that for you.
Almost the entire time I've been a Magic player, there's been another obsession pulling at me. And while not everyone in the world may have heard of Magic the Gathering, there aren't many corners of the planet that have escaped this one.
Uh-oh.
I first got started collecting Pokemon cards at my local Books-A-Million club when I was 12.
Beloved.
The same year I received the Balduvian Horde that would forever change my life. I stopped a few years later around the time my generation inexplicably got into Limp Bizkit and the Fast franchise, but even though I didn't watch the anime or play the card game, I still played a main series game every now and again and enjoyed myself. And that's where the trouble started.
Uh-oh.
You see, it's summertime in the Magic content creation world at the moment, which is when we standard players have a bit of a nap. You see, we have a 5-month gap from May to September where we don't get a set that affects standard, and summertime ad rates are typically very bad anyway, so we take a little break, slink back into our caves for the season, or worse yet, we play Historic Brawl. So during my sloth time this year, I decided to pick up my Switch and replay Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which soon became my favorite main series Pokemon game of all time, which already long story
that's pretty cool. I'm glad you enjoyed
led
it.
to ordering $10 worth of Pokemon cards, which inevitably led to me wanting to play the Pokemon TCG again for the first time since I was a camp counselor at the age of 15. For me, that was close to 25 years ago, and as I near 40 like a bullet train, I find that the older I get, the more I feel that life is short and fleeting and you should do what makes you happy. So, with this
love
thought
that.
in mind,
That is true.
Pokemon TCG Live.
Pokemon TCG Live. Okay, sorry. I just want to like say I love how positive he's already like going into this. Like the positivity is great. I love that. I feel like a lot of people when they look at Pokemon, I mentioned this quite a bit because I hear it all the time at my local game store. I hear it from other players that people just look at Pokemon as a TCG and go, "That's for babies. That's for children. Disgusting!" And it's nice and refreshing to hear somebody kind of already have like a positive outlook going into it, so I really hope he enjoys it. However, I do also want to take note, he is looking at Pokemon TCG Live, which is a notorious sim. It's not a horrible sim, but it's I think it's great for learning, but if you really want the real TCG experience, go to your local game store. But yeah, I'm curious to know his thoughts on this simulator.
The app and had, from a Magic player's perspective, one of the wildest weeks of my life because playing Pokemon is like playing vintage Magic.
Oh, I don't know what vintage
like
Magic is, so I hope there's a little more explanation.
And I'm your favorite Magic channel's favorite Magic channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck tech.
Sorry.
Wait, that was a banger. Why did it stop?
First of all, he says 3 minutes into the video, even though this video is primarily about judging Pokemon cards and decks through the lens of a Magic player, you still have to have a basic knowledge of how to play Pokemon or you'll be lacking vital context, and that can be very embarrassing on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
So you start by drawing 7 cards and placing a basic Pokemon in your active slot up here, then placing up to 5 basic Pokemon on your bench. Stop on your right foot, don't forget it. Then you take an additional 6 cards from the top of your deck and set them face down over here. These are your prize cards, and when you defeat your opponent's Pokemon, you'll get to draw some number of these cards. Whoever draws their last prize card first wins the game. You attack
Hell
your opponent's
yeah.
active Pokemon with your active Pokemon, and to do so, you have to pay that attack's energy
Mana?
cost. You can play one land, attach one energy to a Pokemon every turn. When your attack puts a Pokemon's HP at 0, that Pokemon's knocked out, and you can take your prize cards. The real depth often comes from Pokemon abilities and from the trainer cards, which are powerful one-use cards like instants or sorceries, the most powerful of which have the subcategory of supporter. Supporters can only cast once per turn, but items can be played for free on your turn as often as you like. There are also stadiums, which kind of function like enchantments, but aside from a few ins and outs, that's about it. You now know how to play the Pokemon TCG.
Pretty simple, right?
That means we can discuss.
Easy game, right?
Yeah, that chapter title is absolutely not hyperbole. And by the way, to anyone who doesn't normally watch the channel, you just clicked on this video because you like Pokemon. It must be comforting to know that I look exactly the way you thought I would. But anyway, now that we've addressed the fat guy in the room, back to that chapter title. It's so not hyperbolic that honestly, ancestral recall effects are deemed kind of boring if they don't have some sort of
draw 3 cards or force opponent to draw 3. That would be kind of funny in the TCG if you're playing like a mill deck, right? Pokemon, take notes.
Now, I will say, in the interest of fairness, I guess, these ancestral recall effects and these wheel effects that there are a lot of, and we'll get to in a second, these are mostly all relegated to being supporters. So you can only play one of these a turn, but that doesn't stop them from being bonkers. Just imagine if you could cast a card like Avery in Magic the Gathering.
It's effectively Avery. This was such a fun card to play. So fun. I played it in my Mew VMAX deck. Loved that. I also played it in Gardevoir. Loved that.
For one that draws 3 cards and removes 2 of the opponent's creatures.
Amazing.
And although Avery does see
this was one of the cards I mourned when it rotated.
a fair amount of play, it's not like one of the most popular cards in the format. A far more popular card is Colress's Experiment. Again, just imagine playing this in Magic the Gathering. You know, this looks at the top 5 cards of your deck. You put 3 into your hand and you exile the other 2. Imagine even one of these cards existing in standard Magic the Gathering, and if it did...
Miriam, unfortunately, only saw, like, 3 months of play. She was only played when the Scarlet and Violet set was out, and the Gardevoir archetype became a thing, and then once Super Rod, was it Super Rod? Something came back, and they were just like, yeah, we're gonna be playing that instead. But my girl Miriam, I wish she saw a little more play, but it is what it is.
Exist, imagine how much it would cost to cast a card like any of these cards, and then come back to Pokemon and remember that these cards are free to cast in the game of Pokemon. There were so many cards like this when I first started playing that just completely blew my mind as a Magic player. And as a matter of fact, there were a bunch of them that, again, because of my perspective as a Magic player, I just kind of judged as straight up bad. Like when I first found out that this Jirachi existed, I was like, is Jirachi just like really broken? This card looks incredible to me. And people on Twitter that play Pokemon had to tell me that actually it's not that good to do this thing. But a quick side note here, don't let that give you the wrong idea. Tutors as a concept are themselves incredibly powerful and very present in the current Pokemon standard meta. People just don't like when you tutor by ending your turn, because attacking ends your turn, it turns out. So what people are doing instead is they're playing this thing called Forest Sealstone, which is a very hard card for you to say the name of. Congratulations.
At the time of this recording, March 17th, this is probably not going to be going up on March 17th. This is probably going to be going up after rotation, or at least a little bit before rotation. I love this card so much, and I'm going to miss it so much, but it is a little bit nasty. I like the other Sealstones. Nobody really cares about. When was the last time you heard somebody say they used Earth and Sealstone? Sky Sealstone saw like a tiny bit of play, but Forest Sealstone saw a ton of play.
Since me nailed it on this take, I've done a lot of takes. Now, this just allows you to, without ending your turn, Demonic Tutor for free, once per game. That seems really powerful, and is. Other decks have access to supporters like Irida, right, which can go get 2 extremely important things at the same time. Again, for absolutely free. You get a 2-for-1 tutor. It seems unbelievable. That's because it is, in case you needed more proof. This game is just like gloriously chaotic. Another crazy thing about this game, from a Magic player's perspective at least, is the prevalence of wheel effects. In Standard, right now, almost everybody plays this card, Professor's Research. It's a supporter, so you only cast it once a turn, but it's not uncommon to see this thing cast 3 times per game by both players, right? But there's also Iono, which is kind of a newer version of an effect like this that basically shuffles the cards back in, and then you draw up to 6 cards, depending on how many prize cards you have. A lot of people play this not only to wheel themselves, but screw up their opponent because there's no maximum hand size in Pokemon. So sometimes your opponent will just literally have like 4.
I will say, like, coming from a Pokemon player, I did not know that there were games that had maximum hand sizes. So when that concept was brought to me, I was like, really? You could only have like 8, 9, 10 cards in hand and that's it? I don't know. Maybe I played a lot of Gardevoir. So if you didn't know, Gardevoir EX plays Curlia, right? Because that's the evolution before Gardevoir. It would play this ability called Refinement where you discard 1 and then draw 2, and then you can do it up to like 4 times a turn if you have 4 Curlias. So it's pretty normal in Pokemon to have like 10 to 15 cards in your hand at a time. Like, I've seen people play decks that can allow them to draw like 20. I don't know. The concept of max hand size is crazy to me, but I guess it's normal in other games.
14 cards over there. You cast Iona. I always say cast. You play Iona. That's correct. And suddenly they're down to like 3 or 4 cards when they had a whole game plan based around those 10, 11 cards. So there's a lot of ways to play this, but at the end of the day, it is a wheel effect, and all of these wheel effects in the same standard meta for free to cast basically is just pure fun. Basically, if you want to draw cards, and I know you're a Magic player, you like to draw cards.
I'm
this
not,
might be
but
a
I do
game
like
that
drawing
you want
cards.
to at least try out. And there's a bunch of other ways to draw cards that aren't just on like trainers and stuff. You can use various Pokemon's abilities to draw cards too. Right now, one of the most important cards in the format is Radiant Greninja. It's in a bunch of decks that'll never ever attack with it because basically,
I hate and love this card. I love when I play it. I hate when others play it against me. It's really strong, actually. It's not even pretty strong. It's really strong, and it's getting rotated, so no more Radiant Greninja.
Again, as a Magic player, read this card as a creature with an activated ability that costs 0 to activate. You can only do it once a turn, but you discard a land and draw 2 cards. That would be a very impactful creature in Standard, especially if it was like a 0 mana 1/1, which is effectively what Radiant Greninja is. There's also really popular stuff like Curlia, which just like Radiant Greninja,
that's what
goes
I
in a
was
bunch of
talking
decks
about.
that don't have access to any psychic energy because, again, a lot like Greninja, discard a card. In this case, can be any card, not just energy. Draw 2 cards. That's really, really good in most things. Things like Bibarel are incredibly popular right now because this can draw you up to 5 cards per turn. Sometimes it's less. Who cares? It's still drawing you cards just about every turn. And then Genesect V, which the opponent often has multiple copies of, can draw you up to 6 cards in a turn. And sometimes there's like 3 of them out. You do the math. Now, with all these cards flying around like that, it is not uncommon to see almost the entirety of your deck in just a few short turns. We haven't had to worry about really decking ourselves in Standard Magic for a good long time at this point. But in Pokemon, in Standard right now, there are a bunch of decks that have contingency plans, not unlike a Felden's Cane, right? Again, a card we haven't really had to use any version of in Standard for freaking ever at this point, that actually keep you from losing games to decking yourself, right? People play things like Super Rod, which puts some combination of like Pokemon and energy back into your deck. They play Pal Pad, which does effectively the same thing with supporters. And sometimes you'll see other versions of cards like this. So again, a Standard where you actually have to worry about decking yourself to the point that you're actually taking up slots in your deck to make sure that you don't deck yourself in like every game. That is a kind of Magic that we haven't had to play in Standard in a while. And I gotta admit that I miss it. And the last thing about this game, at least for now, that impressed me as a Magic player was the ramp. Holy soul ring, the ramp electric generator. Look at this thing. This lets you put up to 2 energy from the top 5 cards of your deck just onto your benched electric Pokemon. 2 ramp in a turn is kind of a crazy thing to be able to do, but there's way more than that. There's also stuff like Baxcalibur, which is a cool card that allows you to attach any number of water energy from your hand to your Pokemon. Imagine if you could just play any number of lands from your hand to the battlefield every single turn. A cool card. It was actually one of Brittany's favorite cards for the first week that we played this game. She's since moved on from her Baxcalibur deck, but I get the feeling she will always love her Baxcalibur. But even that is the baby ramp for babies. If you want to do the real stuff in the standard environment, you go with like Arceus V, who can put multiple energy onto your Pokemon from your deck every turn. And then there's stuff like Gardevoir. God, Gardevoir, man. Just imagine if there was a magic card that starting as early as like turn 2 was free to cast, and for the rest of the game, you could just play as many lands as you wanted every turn out of your graveyard. That's effectively what Gardevoir does. Again, with absolutely zero hyperbole, sarcasm, or irony detected, playing ramp in Pokemon's standard environment right now kind of feels like playing Metal Worker in 1999.
What is Metal Worker? Reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand. Add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool for each card revealed this way. Wait, that's kind of funny. That does sound like something we'd have in Pokemon.
Speaking of the meta, that's actually one of the most familiar things to a Magic player. There are ramp decks, of course. There are control decks like Lost Zone Box here.
I'm mourning. This was my absolute favorite version of playing Lost Box. Listen, when Dragonite V and like Drapion rotated out, I was 100% coping. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there was Sablezard, there were like a few other variants of Lost Box, but I feel like, in my humble opinion, this was the peak version of Lost Box. The Dragonite and the Drapion, and it was just perfect. It was just perfect.
Pokemon, the Exile Zone is called the Lost Zone, and a box deck is what it sounds like. It's a shortening of the term toolbox. It's a term we use in Magic for a deck with a lot of one-ofs it can easily find, and that helps it deal with a diverse or typical set of matchups they might find themselves in a meta. There are also aggro decks like Miraidon, which fills the bench and deals big damage fast.
Variant.
There are synergy-driven decks like the terrifying Mew deck that sits at the top of the format. And there are even multiple budget decks like the Masquerada Radiant Alakazam combo, or my personal favorite, United Wings, which chucks cards into the graveyards at breakneck speed to attack with little dudes
United
with
Wings,
huge damage.
bro!
Hello again and welcome to the coffee break.
There was a regional, and I'm sure maybe you guys can find it. I don't know. I'm not gonna say which one, but there was a regional I did make a day 2 at. And there was a United Wings that made it to day 2 alongside of me. So don't sleep on United Wings, chat. Do not sleep on it, okay? Especially if you're a Charizard player, be scared of that. Dartrix is horrifying.
This week on the coffee break, we'll be discussing how I spent $10 on Pokemon cards. I ordered these cards from TCG Player when I was still very unaware of how to tell a good card from a bad card. So most of the order is comprised of relatively bad cards.
Okay.
Pokemon.
Let's take a look. I see the Togekiss.
We start with not just one,
Rest in
but
peace,
2
fairy
Togekiss
types.
because it is a Pokemon that I adore. Especially the art on this first one with this beautiful cartoonish color palette that makes the card pop. But there's also this Togekiss, who is foil,
So
you may
cute.
notice. Along with this Pikachu, who is also foil. I had never seen this Pikachu before, and I thought that it was adorable, and I had to have it. That is how Pokemon works. After that, there's a Farfetch'd, whose art I really liked because I really liked Farfetch'd, and I liked the fact that this was not only shiny, but only 10 or 15 cents. After that is yet another Farfetch'd.
one.
As I said, I greatly appreciate Farfetch'd,
just
and although this may look
lad.
like an old school
Just a
Pokemon
guy.
card, do not let your eyes deceive you. This is from a set called XY Evolutions that came out just a few years ago and reprinted a lot of old school Pokemon cards. It is also where I got this Vulpix that looks like an old Vulpix, this Ponyta, and a lot of other fire Pokemon like this Growlithe and this Charmander, as well as this Charmeleon.
Amazing.
While I was at it, I picked up quite a few more cards from XY Evolutions because this set was extremely nostalgic for me and extremely affordable too. A hard to pass up combination. We also got a Beedrill that's non-holofoil, but still, I love this Beedrill from my youth. There's also a Weedle that is holofoil, and all the other cards in the set are holofoil from now on.
I love
There's also
this little
Magmar that
showcase
set my
section.
heart on fire, a Poliwhirl, a Pokemon I love very much, and a Drowsy. I love basically any and all psychic Pokemon. The sleeve cards start with this Electabuzz, which is from XY Evolutions and only about 25 cents, but I sleeved it because an Electabuzz was the first rare that I ever pulled from a Pokemon pack, so it has great significance to me. There's also a Dugong, a rich young Dugong from Macon, if you believe Futurama. There's an Arcanine, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, but there is also a Zapdos, the most expensive single card in the entire order at $2 and
$2.
It looks exactly like the Zapdos.
Crazy.
And that means a lot to me. We also got an Eevee. This is an actual old school Pokemon card from Jungle, one of the first Pokemon sets ever released. Eevee is also one of my favorite Pokemon, so it means a lot to actually have a piece of the game's history in my hand.
Hell
There's
yeah.
this Jirachi, who I mostly just thought looked cool and cost $1.
It is a really
I like
cool
that
card.
she's sort of casting stars. I think that's cool. Aside from that, there's an
Ooh,
Executor.
I love this one.
That's in a different language. We have a Mew, which is currently a playable card in Standard, and as a matter of fact, one of the only
Rest in
playable
peace.
cards in Standard in the entire order. Aside from that, there's my favorite card from the order, which is a Chansey, mostly because this Chansey is not reverse holofoil and actually has holofoil background, making it look exactly like the Chansey from when I was a child, which makes me extremely happy. I
I'm
love
so
holding
glad.
this card.
This is so wholesome.
Aside from that, we got this Hoodoo, which is full art, but was not part of the order. Shout out to the guy at Dave & Buster's who works there and had a pack battle with me when I bought a pack with prize points. He gave me this Hoodoo when he opened it. You're a good man, guy who works at Dave & Buster's. That's all for the coffee break
Shout
this
out
week.
to that guy.
It may not be a great way to spend $10 on Pokemon cards, but it did make me very happy. And at the end of the day, that's all that counts. Now back to Dev
Aww.
with the conclusion of this video.
I
Ultimately,
love
one of the
that.
most important parts of Magic that we don't talk about enough is the relationships that we form with these cards. Because of what happened all those years ago, I still feel a kind of bond with Balduvian Hordes. I have that same bond with cards all the way back to Shivan Dragon and all the way up to Ellis Ilkor. There's not a Commander player alive who doesn't have a Commander who they basically treat like their favorite Pokemon, carrying it everywhere and sharing stories about their time together.
Aww,
Over
that's the
years,
best part, right?
I formed these same bonds.
That is the best part of like TCGs is kind of like the sentimentalness, right? Earlier in this video, I was looking back at the Lost Box list and I'm like, dang, I remember how much joy I had playing that deck. Like legitimately, Lost Box was one of the most fun decks I've ever played, and one of the reasons why I thought it was so fun was because it was such a challenging deck. I don't think there's been a deck that had made me cry like wanting to play it or like playing it than Lost Box ever has. Like I remember the first few cups and challenges I brought that deck to, I was getting my ass whooped. I was just like not having a great time, but I was so determined to learn how to play the deck and just perform better with it that I was starting to have so much fun learning the numbers, learning like the combos. Oh, this matchup, I can't play this down, I have to play this down. I got to play test so much with my friends, and those are memories I'm gonna carry for the rest of my life, and I associate those memories now with that deck. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to add that into there. And there's like a few more decks. Like I really enjoyed Zoroark GX and like the Gardevoir GX combo, and I really like Charizard EX. Charizard EX was probably the deck I performed best with, but I don't think, at least right now, like those memories will kind of be as special as the Lost Box memories I've had, just like learning the deck and playing with friends and going to tournaments and stuff, because I feel like that was my peak time in Pokemon. Like that was the prime time where I was like super obsessed. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I have a lot to thank for. I have a lot to thank that deck for. Comment down below, do you have a deck that is like that to you? Do you have like a very sentimental deck? And it doesn't even have to be Pokemon. You can say like a Yu-Gi-Oh deck or Magic or Battle Sagas. I don't know. So let me know. I really like hearing stories about that.
Zapdos and Gardevoir and Charmander and so many more. And it was nice revisiting my old friends this past week. But there was something else I noticed that hung in the background of this experience. It also felt like getting to play a version of Magic the Gathering that I used to love. And as over the top as it was to cast wheel after wheel after ancestral recall after ancestral recall, I wish Wizards could give us a standard this wild again. And while Magic and Pokemon have gone through similar power creep scenarios, in both games the creatures have been powered up, the spells have been powered down, Pokemon never decided that Lightning Bolt was too much for Standard, or Birds of Paradise, or Dark Ritual, or Necropotence. It seems odd that if you walked away from both games at the same time 25 years ago, you would today be walking into a Standard Magic format that feels like Tuesday night at a nursing home, and if you revisited Pokemon, you would be plunged into a format where a card like Bill could still exist. This last week of Pokemon has proven to me that it is not impossible to create a fast-paced and exciting Standard environment in the year 2023, but it feels like Standard Magic hasn't been able to do that in some time. And
I mean,
as its Wizards
maybe because this is quite a bit of an old video. I just like really wanted to watch this because I wanted to hear a Magic player's thoughts on the game. It's 2025 now. I want to know if any Magic players, did the meta change? Did anything like majorly change?
stated goal to revitalize Standard over the next year or two here, maybe the best way to get it started is to make Standard actually exciting to play again. Mic drop, but I'm not going to drop this mic. It cost money. But that's all for this one. Hey, thanks for letting me do it. It's been sitting around in my head for like a week now, and I got to get it out, or I just can't live with myself. So now that I'm done with it, I can go on to making Magic the Gathering content again. Sorry about that. I will atone for this by making like a top 5 budget commanders sometime in the next few days here. I'm getting to it because even though I have been playing Pokemon, been looking at a lot of commander stuff too. So that video is on its way. I promise I'm not just going to be a Pokemon channel. I might do a second channel for reviewing Pokemon spoilers and stuff. I'm considering it. Obsidian Flames coming out August the 11th. I want to do a spoiler video. Probably have to make another channel, but don't worry. I still like it a Magic. That's why the first 5 words of this video are, I am a Magic player. I will always be. I don't intend to never not be, right? So to ever not be. There you go. So don't worry.
I love
this channel's
guy.
not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I still very much love Magic, mostly because of that stupid Balduvian horde. If it had never happened, would I be here? Glad that it did, though. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, how about you stick around? Maybe give me a little like, subscribe, help out with the old engagement, go down to the comments section and be like, this guy's too old for Pokemon. I know there's at least one of you that's going to be that way. I was 12 when Pokemon came to America. They got me. What can I do? You know what I mean? It's hopeless at this point. But anyway, check out the Patreon and watch me play Magic on Twitch at these web addresses. Supporting on the Patreon actually is like the only real way I make money from doing this. So if you want to check that out, it's just $1 a month and you can vote on what content we do around here. Patrons, sorry I didn't give you a say in this one. I had to do this video. But before we get out of here, we got one more thing to do.
A patron,
if you're not from the channel, you're like, where's this guy going? I'm going over here and I'm going to blind pick a card from the couch, right? And I'm going to see what it is. What card did we pick up? Oh my goodness, some history. I love when we pick up history, right? This right here, guys?
It's a tiger.
Pouncing Jaguar.
Sorry, my bad.
Pouncing Jaguar is just a single green mana for a 2/2 cat with Echo. That means that you have to pay its casting cost again, the upkeep after it comes into play. But it's just a single green mana for a 2/2. That's pretty good. Hey, Pokemon players, judge. Is that a good card? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
It would still be okay, but not anywhere near as good as it once was. But it was a massive key piece in Stompy decks like way back in 1998. And even though Stompy was a concept in 1998, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, because that's when Metal Worker was a thing, and like Tolarian Academy and Grim Monolith and some of the most broken cards like of all time. And yet Stompy was able to exist. Such was the power of Pouncing Jaguar. And mostly Rancor as the actual secret to that deck. But Pouncing Jaguar has its place in Magic history, and I'm glad we pulled it. But for this one, we are Dunsky Lewinsky. That's all I got to say
she's a little
about
sassy.
Pokemon for the time being. If you try it out, let me know how you felt about it. If you're a Pokemon player who enjoyed this Magic player's perspective, let me know. If you're a Magic player who's interested in playing Pokemon, now that I said you get to cast Ancestral Recall every turn, give it a shot. I'm telling you, it's kind of refreshing and fun, but you'll still be a Magic player. Don't worry. It's not going to do anything to you. I don't know, people are weird, but anyway, that's all I've got for this one, guys. And I appreciate you stopping by. I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.
Oh, that was like honestly kind of wholesome. I loved that. I don't know what I was expecting from this video. I think I'm just watching the Raron. I still don't know how to pronounce that man's name. I'm so sorry. But I was expecting more like a boot camp training arc. Not really in an almost like an analytical perspective, right? But I almost kind of preferred this in a way where I just liked hearing how he was able to compare it to like another game, and him just like not shitting on the game was also very refreshing to hear. This video is a little bit old, so we're about to be 2 rotations away from the decks he showed, but it was still kind of nostalgic looking back at some of my favorite decks. But what did you think? Are you a Magic player? Have you played Pokemon? What are your thoughts on this video? Comment down below. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. Don't forget to subscribe.